Welcome to Guided by Third Wheel, the podcast. My name is Amber Ireland, and I'm here with my co-host, Jill Bucaro. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Guided by Third Wheel. Amber and I decided this morning that we wanted to talk a little bit about our inner dialogue and maybe like our inner critic or whatever that running kind of dialogue is that we have inside of ourselves. What are we saying about ourselves? How are we judging ourselves? What are we saying and thinking about other people?
Right.
What are we projecting? what do we think other people are thinking about us? All of that kind of stuff, because I think, or I know really, at least for me, when I get in bad places, I can usually tell because my inner dialogue, my inner critic gets so severe and so ugly and so negative. I don't think that that is a problem unique to me, right?
No.
I think that probably a lot of people, what I hear and what I see is that we are all kind of battling that inner demon a little bit with what we're saying to ourselves. So Amber, tell us about inner Amber. What is she saying? What is she thinking?
Yeah, I'm going to take a little walk through the brain here. I think at this point in my life, my inner dialogue is marginally better. I won't say it's completely better, but I think it's marginally better than it has been at different points in my life. Spend a lot of time going back to themes of, everybody thinks that I don't know what I'm doing. Everybody thinks that I don't look good enough. People think that I'm not smart enough. My inner dialogue is what I perceive other people are thinking about me.
Interesting.
In general. But I also think there's like this inner voice that is like, that was so dumb. Why did you do that? Why do you, why can't you just get these things under control? Why do you have to always do this?
Yes.
For me, what I generally experience just on that surface level when I'm thinking is I'm thinking, what is everyone else thinking about me? And I'm projecting those like inner voices that are below that onto other people to say like, here they, Certainly
they're thinking that.
It can be as shallow as you gain weight. And then you see somebody, 6 months later. My immediate thought is always, they're probably looking at me like, oh, it's really sad that she gained weight.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And it makes me wonder, like, those things that we're projecting onto other people, are those just really, like, our deepest, darkest, like, fears and things that we hate about ourselves? Because I don't ever think that. Like, I don't worry about that. But I do think all the time, like, they think I'm, like, socially awkward, or, like, they think that I was mean and ugly, or, like, everyone hates me. I always think everyone hates me all the time. Like, every time I walk into a room, I'm like, everyone here hates me. And maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe I'm really picking up on the energy. Maybe I'm not. But, yeah, I wonder if so much of what we project onto other people, or what we fear other people are thinking about us, is really what... You know what I mean? Are those things that we don't like about ourselves?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It's 100% true. I think the piece around other people hating me, I don't get that as much. Like, I don't walk into a room and I immediately think, like, everyone's looking at me and they just don't like me as a human. But it's like I can look around and I'm like, are they disappointed in me? Like that, it's those types of things. It's not really like hatred. It's more like they're disappointed in my ability to do things. They think that I'm a liar. They think that I, don't have integrity. Things like that. But what I know about my inner self is that those are pieces that that I struggle with myself, right? Because I do internally, I will lie to myself. I will lie to myself and tell myself that things are different than they are. So for me, I think the internal pieces are what I'm projecting out, right? When I'm thinking that other people are disappointed in me or think that I don't have integrity or I'm not smart enough, that's because those are things that I've told myself. That's because that's the way that I talk to myself sometimes, where I say, like, you don't know what you're doing. Like, who the hell gave you this job? Why are you even entertaining this? Like, you can't do this. And sometimes that's my voice. And I can also tell when that is a voice that I have heard from other people in my life,
yes,
right? And
yes.
maybe it's not my voice, but it's still in there, like, hey, you don't ever finish anything. You know, you're certainly not smart enough to do that. What do you think you're doing? You know, those old programs that have kind of come from other people. So sometimes it's my voice, sometimes it's someone else's, but there is a lot of that, you know, rattling around up there.
For sure. And I think, I mean, very few of us are going to get through this life without having either a boss that was kind of like said mean or like emotionally abusive type things, or a partner, or significant other, or a parent, or or grandparent, or somebody like that. Yes, because sometimes I will tell myself things that I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's not me, right? That's somebody else's voice for sure. Like, I know, like, when a certain job that I had in the past, I was told a lot of things like, Jill, you're not a team player. You know, it's always all about you. You're mean to your coworkers. People are scared to come to you. People are scared to do this and that. I tell myself those things all the time.
I was just thinking when we were talking about this, because I was thinking about the things that people have told me that have stuck, because people have said all kinds of things to me that didn't stick.
Why does some bullshit stick and some bullshit doesn't? I don't know. And I don't know if that goes back to like family of origin.
Yeah.
I don't know if that goes back to like what are our deepest fears about ourselves. Yeah, I do think that's worth considering. Like, why does this stick, right? Because if somebody said to me like, Jill, you're not smart, or Jill, you can't do this, right? Like, I don't really struggle with like lack of confidence around like my ability to like do and complete tasks.
Right.
Like, if somebody was like, Jill, here's a really hard project, like, it would never occur to me that I couldn't get it done.
Right.
I would be like, it might be hard, like, I might have to, you know, do whatever. So I'd be like, fuck you, you're an idiot, right? But why, when somebody says things to me like, Jill, you're not a team player, or Jill, nobody likes to work with you, why does that stick?
Well, and I wonder, too, because I'm just thinking about the things that did stick and why. I just wonder if those were seeds that were planted that unconsciously I didn't know. And because I got that critique or that mean statement, it made it grow.
Yes.
You know, and it was already there all along. I just hadn't seen it until somebody pointed it out. And that's why it stuck, which is, you know, also a little terrifying that you might have these little seeds. I think everybody can kind of go back and see, like, when you were a child and you were in that development stage and your brain was developing, if you were hearing a lot of critical messages about yourself, you probably are carrying those. Like, I don't think that's a shock to anyone. No. But then when you get older and you start to develop like a sense of self, and you start to let some of those things go and you have a little bit more confidence, you would think that less things would stick to you, right? Or that, you know, things wouldn't, because it's like, I'm a whole grown ass adult, right? But then it's like these little things, as like a partner says something. It could be even somebody so insignificant to you that says something that you're just, it like gut punches you, and you're like, oh my God, is that who I am?
Yes, I agree with that. And it's curious to me, too, why certain things are problems for certain people, right? Like, why is body stuff such a huge issue for me? Body stuff is, like, I think an issue for me to the point that any, like, woman living in 2024 in America, you know, I don't think you get to be, like, a woman and escape body image stuff entirely, right? You can tell yourself you don't, but, like, deep down, you fucking do. But it's not a big thing for me, right? You know, imposter syndrome, not a huge thing for me, but thinking that nobody wants me around, thinking I'm not worthy of love and belonging, like the biggest thing for me, right? So it's just like, it's curious to me, like, why different things stick with different people. And it goes back to what you're just talking about like, is it a seed? Is it something that came from family of origin? Is this a lesson in this lifetime that we were supposed to overcome, right? Is it even bigger than just, you know, us as a human right now? Does it have something to do with our soul journey, our soul lesson? Yeah. Things like that. I was thinking about when you were talking earlier, what do I always worry about? And I talked about being worried that other people don't like me, or, you know, don't love me, all that kind of stuff. And I think sometimes we fear the most, like, what we're not giving ourselves, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Like, because I'm so afraid that people don't love me because I'm constantly hustling for love, admiration, and validation, right? And I have such a scarcity mindset around that. Just me personally, I do. Like, it's never enough, right? Like, it's just never enough. But really, I mean, that's a clue to me that I need to learn how to give that to myself so that I'm not constantly obsessing about who I'm going to get it from again, when I'm going to get it again. You see what I'm saying? And so I wonder too, I think part of that inner dialogue piece is a clue to us. What do we need to be giving ourselves? And that's a big one for me. And, you know, if anybody has any tips and tricks on how to do that, I'd be curious, because I think we really obsess about and think about what feels scarce to us in our lives.
Yeah, I think that is spot on for a lot of us. You know, I think about just the thought of forgiveness, right? You could do some really wild shit to me and I could forgive you. I could look at you and be like, you are a human just like me. You have had struggles in your life. I can forgive this. Maybe I'm not going to continue to accept that behavior or whatever has happened, but I can forgive you for not knowing better, not being able to do better, absolutely. But you asked me to forgive myself for something that even other people have forgiven me for. Nope, I'm holding that boulder. Yes. I'm like, let me hold this shame and guilt and carry it around, and I'm not going to put it down. It's like I can't forgive myself in the same way that I can forgive other people. I don't know. Maybe that's everyone does that, but I feel like, the older you get, the heavier the boulder gets.
Right, because you're going to continue to fuck up.
Right.
Like, that's part of being human. I think I have a really hard time forgiving myself, and I also have a very hard time, like, giving myself grace, which is maybe kind of the same thing, but, like, not really. I can give anyone else around me grace. Kind of like you said, like, somebody could punch me in the face, and I could be like, that was wrong. Like, they should not have punched me in the face. However, I understand they might have been frustrated. They could have, been exposed to violence as a child, right? Like, there are all these, there is context for this person's, like, bad or unfortunate behavior. For me, it doesn't matter if you have not slept in 2 days, if someone has, like, ripped your entire heart out, like, if work is literally on fire. God forbid I don't do something perfectly. I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. Yeah. Why wouldn't you do this? Like, you fuck up everything. And it's like, I can just so easily give other people grace. At work all the time, people are like, oh my gosh, I fucked up. And it's just like, and truly now it's like, I'm not even faking it, right? Like, I'm not even like saying it because I'm like, oh, this is like the nice thing that a boss would say. Right. I'm literally like, it happened. Did I wish it went down like that? No. But like, you're not going to make it through your whole career without fucking up. In the grand scheme of life, we literally won't remember this in 2 weeks. Like, I can't worry about it, but God knows if I fuck up, I'll remember it for 2 weeks, I'll remember it for 2 years, I'll remember it for 20 years, and it's just like, why can't I give myself that same grace? And I think the more work that you do, you get better at pretend telling yourself this. So I'm curious about this for you. I feel like I have 2 voices in my head. I have like the voice that's done the work. That's like, Jill, you deserve grace. Jill, you're allowed to make mistakes. Jill, you are perfect and lovable just the way you are. And then I have like the real voice that's like, that voice is full of shit. Yep. And if that was really true, then how come X, Y, and Z isn't happening, right? Or how come A, B, and C went down the way that it did? So now, like before, I only had the mean voice, right? So I'm grateful that I now have like also the nice voice. But deep, deep down, I only believe the mean voice.
That's true. I think I have cultivated the nice voice as well. They're still there. They're still both there. I also think that I've been able in some situations, it's like these, these 2 things that are kind of polar opposites in your head. And I've been able to get the nice voice to tell the mean voice, nope, you need to be quiet. We are done here. Thank you so much. Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
And
you have a lot of ideas. I appreciate that.
Yep. Thank you for keeping us safe in certain situations. And now we don't need that. And I've been able to put things to bed that way, but also, that the mean voice is still there. It's still, and it's harder the more stressed you are. Yes. The more feelings that are happening, the higher the charge is, that it's harder to suppress that mean voice. When it's something minor, I can work myself out of it pretty quick. Like, oh, okay, you're all right. And then, but if it's something big,
no. Well, and I think what you're talking about, like how emotionally charged it is. Like, there are lots of things I feel like I have worked through, right? Where I think I could almost believe the nice voice, right? Like, I'm pretty much there.
Right.
But there are certain things, yes. And maybe it is like those core wounds, right? Like that core shit where I'm just like, that nice voice is an idiot.
Yeah. What do you think, if you look at all of the different feelings you have and all of the ways that you talk to yourself, can you pin it down to one core wound, one core thing that it's like, I can always bring it back to this thing?
Yes. I think so. I think it's that I'm not lovable, because I think that informs the way that I'm always hustling for like status, admiration, approval, validation. And I think that also informs when I look back at relationships, both romantic and otherwise, the sabotaging I do is to like protect myself from that final moment where my biggest fear, not being lovable, would like be realized and come true.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is for me.
Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, it's similar, but it's just worthiness in general. Just being not worthy of things that come into my life, not good enough for the things that come into my life. So, like, when things end or things go awry, it always, like, that blame comes back to me because I am the one that created it, right?
Yes.
Me alone.
You fucked it up.
Me alone created this. Now I can kind of, when I get there, I say, okay, maybe you did create this. But it wasn't because you weren't worthy. It was because this is part of your journey, right? You may have done things that got you here, but this was just part of what needed to happen. And it's a learning process, and just reminding myself of that. But God, even when I learn things, it's like that forgiveness piece, like just being able to be like, okay, you didn't know better.
Right.
Because most of the time that's what it is, right? It's like you didn't know better. Maybe you did know better, but you didn't have the skills at that point in time to apply it. Maybe you were in a place that you were emotionally dysregulated and unable to like live the way that you would have normally. But it's like, I can see that in other people, but when I look at myself, I'm like, no, you, Amber, you should be perfect. There should never be anything like this.
You should never fuck up ever in your whole life. I do. And I think that is a common thing I hear from people, because I know something I say a lot to people is like, we did the best we could with like the tools and ability we had at the time and the knowledge we had at the time, right? Hindsight is always 20/20. Right. When you are living in that pinpoint of time, particularly if that pinpoint of time is emotionally charged, is like probing all of your core wounds, and whoever else is involved in the situation there should as well, you are not going to have like the perspective that you have afterwards, right? And so I know that's something that people struggle with, because I feel like I have that conversation like therapeutically all the time with people, right? That we did the best we could. I'm sitting here while we're talking and I'm like, I think this is a really honest conversation. I think it's good to like kind of cultivate this awareness for us to understand what are the things that really trip me up. What are the things that like I cannot get the voice in my head to get healthy on, essentially. But then it's like, what do we do about it, right? And what do we try to do to address that? And I don't know if it's just like trying to support the nice voice, if it's honoring the mean voice. I think there's a piece of it, and this kind of lends itself a little bit to like internal family systems theory type work. I think there's a piece of it that's like honoring the negative voice. And you mentioned this because those fears, those beliefs, they did at some point keep you safe. Yeah. And you have to like honor that and recognize that. But how do you put them to bed? How do you say, this is no longer serving me? Right. And I just think, one, like easier said than done. I think some of this is just part of being a human. I don't know if the most self-actualized people in the world ever get rid of the ugly voice. Right. I don't know.
Right. I think it starts with awareness, just being aware that you are having this internal dialogue. Because I think about when I was younger, I wouldn't have had words for that to be like, oh, I'm just telling myself in my head that I'm a piece of shit. No,
I was like a blind believer of like this shitty voice.
Right. That this is just part of who I am, instead of this is just a lens that I continue to choose to look through. That's what it is. It's like we have these lenses that we see the world through, and sometimes we choose to put on the shitty lens, and sometimes we choose to put on the rose-colored glasses, you know? And I think being aware of that, but not bypassing it. Because that's the other thing with the mean voice, with those pieces, you have to recognize them for what they are. The only reason they got to be so loud in your head is because at some point in time it served you. Maybe not super well, but it served you maybe to keep you safe in situations when you were younger. And you do have to say, like, hey, I appreciate that.
Yes.
I appreciate that. I see what the value of this was. And that's the forgiveness piece, I think, when you look at it that way, to be like, I see what the value of that was for me at that time. And also, I can forgive myself for talking to myself that way at this point. And I can say, we don't need this anymore. Thank you.
Yes. No, I think that's true. I think there's an awareness piece of like checking in to see where you are. As someone who struggles with depression, when I am in a depressive episode, the nice voice is nowhere. Like, she is gone. Like, it is only the mean voice. But now I have, to your point, the ability, the language, the awareness to be able to say, the nice voice exists. She is somewhere. I cannot access her right now because of where I am at with my mood and emotionally. But like, I have to believe that, you know, she will come back, right? And I think that sometimes, even if we cannot like put the ugly voice to bed, even if we cannot say like, thank you for your service, but I do not need your service any longer. That awareness piece can help too, to know that nice voice is somewhere. And maybe she's not going to come find me today, but hopefully tomorrow or hopefully a week from now, we'll be able to get her back. And that has been a game changer for me, to be able to say like, well, I guess it's just you and me today, ugly voice. Like,
but you become the nice voice then.
That's true. Then you kind of are the nice voice.
You are the nice voice, because you're like, I see you over there, like, spewing out some bullshit.
Thank you.
And I don't really have the energy today to fight you. Like, I see you over there. I realize what you're spewing is bullshit. I can't really shut you up right now, but tomorrow I will.
Yes.
So,
thank you. I guess carry on.
If you would like to be quieter, that would be helpful. Also, we will attend to you at the point where we have enough energy to do so. But I do think, you know, that awareness, because probably for you, and I know for me, there was a period of time where I had no idea that I could even stand up against that. That was just who I was.
Yes.
You know, that ugly voice was me. Yes. That was, you know, that was all of my potential. That was all of my worth. That was all of those things. And finally coming to a place where it's like, damn it, that's not even true.
That's not me. You know? I think that differentiation is a huge piece of like doing the work and leveling up. A really good book for that, we've talked about it before, is The Untethered Soul. The Untethered Soul, The Four Agreements, and anything by Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth or something like that, they talk a lot about that like piece of like really whittling down to who am I really, and we are like the observer, right? We are the observer of the voices in our head. We are the observer of thoughts of inadequacy, right? Or feelings of worthlessness or feelings of unlovability. Like, we are that observer. Being able to orient yourself back there is a huge piece of it. And I think just being honest about it, you know, there's something freeing about being able to say, I have this core belief that I am unlovable, and I'm brave enough and confident enough now to say it out loud, whereas 10 years ago I would never say it, right?
Oh God.
So it's like, I think there's that piece about being honest, and I'm so grateful now that we have like spaces and people are just, I think, more thoughtful and self-actualized, that like they talk about this kind of shit, you know?
Right. And like you said, with the being able to put a name to it, being able to say, I know what that wound is, right? Is also the nice voice, because it's like, I know what the wound is. So every time that I start to feel that way, I know exactly where to go to uncover the problem.
Yes.
Right? Yes. I know the direct path to like, oh, this must just be another layer of being unworthy that I need to deal with. And I can just go directly to it. So it does also make it faster to reconcile, because I already know where I'm going. I know where the problem is. I know where the feeling that doesn't serve me lives.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And kind of related, but a little different. I did want to include it because I've been thinking this the whole time. I did like this leadership academy thing a couple years ago, and the woman who was in charge of it and ran it said something that's always stuck with me. And she said, the thing that you fear most about yourself can never ever be true, because like the bad things are the things that you have blind spots to.
Yeah.
The thing that you worry about and obsess about, that's not it.
Yeah.
Because you're fixated on it. You're focused on it. You're attending to it. You're overcompensating for it. So whatever you fear is not it.
Right.
Like, there's problems with all of us, right? And we don't, most of the time, we don't know it until hopefully, like, a kind person that cares about us, like, hips us to it, you know? But
perhaps
truly,
you should be nicer.
like, Jill, don't do that. But and I think about that all the time. So that, to me, is, like, a nice reminder, too, when I'm in the spiral. Like, if you're obsessing about this, no one else is worried about it but you.
Yeah.
The things people are worried about, you're not even thinking about it, right? Like, truly. So.
Yeah. And it's 100% true, because anything that I worry about with myself, generally, you know, I can take a step back out of, you know, take a higher view of my life and look and be like, I'm pretty sure nobody was thinking that about you. Like, zero people.
There is no evidence to support that.
Except what you were
Except
telling
your fucking
yourself.
spiral inside of your brain.
And I also know that, you know, my spiral in my brain would go, well, that's because you were so fixated on it that you overcompensated, that you were able to hide it so well from other people, right?
But it's still a problem.
But it's still a problem, and you better keep hiding it. And I think that's another thing, too, that hiding. You perceive that something is not good with you as a person, and so you go to great lengths to hide that piece, right? And I think that, you know, all in itself, that hiding just holds you back from so many growth opportunities out of fear, you know, out of fear that somebody's gonna like find out that you have done something.
Yes, and
or
I think
that you are something.
And I've said this before on here, like, I think, you know, our happiness and our fulfillment in life comes from purpose and connection, right? And if you are hiding parts of you that you deem like unfit or not good enough, you are never, ever going to be able to have authentic connection with other people, because they can sense when, and we can all sense when somebody's hiding something or being inauthentic or, you know, being cagey or weird.
Right.
And you're never going to be able to fulfill your true purpose because you're so fearful, because you're holding yourself back all the time.
Right.
So I think, I mean, truly, I think sometimes, like, you know, leading with our wounds, not like leading with our wounds to the point that we are bleeding out all over people around us.
Make sure you've got your wound at least a little bandage.
Like, put a fucking bandage on it first. But like leading with our wounds and being honest about them and being like, these are the things that I struggle with, right? And I think that will help you move towards, you know, connection and purpose. Yeah. In a way that, like, skulking around, hiding them, only showing half your fucking face all the time is not going to do it.
And also the hiding piece, sometimes it does create divide between you and other. And I would say always probably it does create divide, but not in the way that, like, other people are going to perceive you as someone who is not sharing or not presenting their whole self. But what you end up holding on to because of the hiding. Because I don't have to share all parts of myself with every single person I come in contact with. No. Not everyone deserves all of that of me, right? That is just not, it's not necessary. But also, when I know that I'm like purposely holding something back out of shame, out of guilt, out of feeling like this is going to make somebody look at me as if I'm not worthy, that does something to me. And it furthers that kind of mean voice to be like, see, you better keep your mouth shut. You better hold on to that. Don't put that down. Don't forgive yourself for that. Because if you do, you might lose all of this that you have out here, which is probably not true.
No.
And if it was, who the fuck cares? Like, if you can't look at the ugly that didn't happen to you, that didn't impact, you know, just me sharing, then I don't really want you around.
Right. And I think that's fair too. And I think a good reminder that, we don't want or need authentic connection with every single person. No. Especially people who are not safe.
Right.
So so thinking about that too. But I think, you know, we can be don't know if guarded is the right word, but I think you can be guarded in a way that's healthy with certain people.
Right. There are boundaries.
But that isn't like clinging, you know, and like wrapping yourself in the ugliness and feeding the ugly voice, right?
Yeah.
I think there's different ways to do that. I think the pain and the hurt and the suffering comes when you are clinging to that ugliness instead of like sharing it and being honest with the people that you do want authentic connection with.
Yeah. Because I feel like as I've gotten older, and you hear this about people when they get older and they're like, I just stopped giving a fuck. I just started like saying whatever I wanted to say. I think that comes with age. I think that comes with experience, because we get to a place where it's like, I don't want to hold this anymore.
I physically fucking can't.
Right. And so I'm going to share this. And then you start to realize, like the first couple of times you do it, it's really scary and feels terrible for a minute, until you look around at the people you're sharing it with and they're like, yeah, me too. I feel that way too sometimes.
Right.
And then it's like the floodgates have opened, because you're like, well, how about this? Did you do this? What about this? You know? And then everybody is like, oh yeah, yeah. But I think that's a beautiful connection that you can make with other people. And not only for yourself, but for them, to be the person who's like willing to open the door for a second and be like, hey, I got this like little vulnerable piece in here. Could you look at it and tell me if you might also?
Does this resonate with you?
Right.
Yeah.
Can I turn this into a more human experience other than I am a bad person experience?
Yes. And I think like I am grateful, because I do think some of that does come naturally with age, right? Yeah. And certainly comes with doing the work and also age. Because I do think there are some people that are old and getting older that they're not gaining the awareness, right? To be able to engage in that. But I think most of us, like I am so thankful that I don't give a fuck as much as I used to give a fuck, right? Kidding. And I am so thankful that I can just like recognize like this person is not for me, right? You know? Yeah. And not worthy of my time and attention, and the true honest parts of me. Yeah. And I just don't know that was like emotionally possible for me as a teenager or somebody in my 20s. Yeah. I just don't think, you know what I mean? I just wasn't there yet. So I am grateful for age, and I hope it just keeps getting better, you know?
Well, I mean.
Thanks. I hope so.
I mean.
Banking on that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it does. I feel like the older I get, I don't know, the more full my life feels, the more fulfilling my life feels, the more I know myself, I guess. Yes. Probably is more so what it is. So, yeah, I do. But it does. It comes from doing the work, because, like you said, sometimes I work with people, meet people, or have people in my life who are much older than me that have not come to these realizations, have not done that individual work, and they're at a different place. But, you know, that might be where they need to be in this lifetime. Who knows?
That's exactly true. Right. Maybe they're working on other stuff. I don't know.
Maybe they're coming into my purview so I can, like, open up a door and be like, hey, we could do it this way. You know? Like, would you like to try this out? You know? And maybe they're showing me something about what it could have been, or they're showing me something around other aspects of my life. So no, just always being able to remember that. And I think that kind of goes back to those internal voices. You know, I've got an internal voice now that is able to kind of remind me to look at things from a higher perspective, and to be able to look at the world differently than I used to. And it's not all me. It is me in conjunction with all of these other souls, this entire universe, this tapestry of life that I get to participate in, opposed to is being thrown at me in ways that I don't want it.
Yes. Yeah. I think thinking like that, I always call it that zooming out, right? Like that zooming out to gain that perspective that you need to understand like the design of it all. For sure.
So if you are younger and you have not, and you're like, damn, I don't really want to wait another 20 years to figure these things out. I mean, I do think you can start the work earlier. I wish I would have started the work earlier, but, you know, maybe I wouldn't be in the place I'm in now if I would have, you know. So it's all part of the journey. But, you know, like we've said in other podcasts, once you hear it, you can't unhear it. So, you know, now you'll be kind of looking critically at the voices in your head and being like, oh, I do tell myself that. Like,
I say some mean shit to myself. Right. That isn't even, that's honestly like kind of delusional and crazy.
Yeah.
I think that's sometimes too, and that's why I'll journal sometimes. Like, Jill, if you said this shit out loud,
right,
they would throw your ass, straight up in the hospital. This is some wild shit that you are thinking inside of your brain.
I think that's a really good way too to start, because I journal almost every day, but also when I first started journaling, which wasn't really that long ago, now that I'm thinking about it, but I was journaling a lot, and it was so much information. It was a lot of that stuff in my head that I would write down. And when I would write it out, I'm like, oh my God, this really is what I'm thinking in here, right? And being able to like reconcile it while you're writing it and like release some of those emotions while you're putting it down on paper, that has really helped me kind of get a better bead on what is happening inside of my head.
Yes.
Quicker day to day, because I was able to write it out for so long.
Well, and I say this too, this is another therapist thing I say all the time, is like the thoughts inside of our head are always like scarier until we say them or write them down.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we say them and we're like, okay, well, that's not that scary. Or sometimes we say them and we're like, that doesn't even make sense and is not logical and is delusional and weird, or sometimes it's just like we say them and it's like with that some of that burden, some of that fear comes away. So that would be another really helpful tip or trick, is to find a way to like get that out, right? Take it up out of your body, whether it's saying it to a therapist, saying it to a trusted friend. But again, we're not here to bleed our wounds all over our friends and family and the people that we care about, or journal it or something like that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes creating those safe spaces for yourself internally, right? That you can trust yourself and you can have these dialogues by journal, but then also creating these safe spaces with other people that you can share that information and nobody walks away carrying someone else's burden. And I like that thought, because I have been in friendships and relationships before where it's like, yeah, we shared all kinds of things and we all walked away with our own shit and a little piece of someone else's shit that we felt responsible for.
We also like grabbed up their suitcase and added it to the luggage cart.
Yeah, we're like, let's trade, like let's trade some luggage around here, and then you switch it up again later and pick up some more. But I do like the fact that I have relationships now where it's like, we can share that information. We can provide each other with some insight, and then we can walk away and be like, I honor that is your shit to carry.
Yes.
And I honor my shit to carry. And, I wish you well on your
luck.
journey.
I'm rooting on you. For you.
Maybe put some of that down, but don't give it to me.
But I don't want it.
Yeah. I got my own stuff to put down over here.
And that goes back to the boundary stuff. Mm-hmm. But hopefully that's helpful for people. Yeah. If nothing else, like, you're not the only one with crazy voices inside your head.
Yeah.
Amber and I are right there with you.
Yeah.
So.
Got it.
Do you want to do a card for us?
Yeah. Is there one you want?
Why don't we do a tarot?
All right. Invite everybody to take a deep breath. And release. And we will all set the intention that today we will receive exactly what we need from this card reading, from this podcast episode, and maybe from the kind voices inside of our head.
Those wise ones. Listen to them.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Oh, look. Jesus. Well, we got the High Priestess. And the High Priestess is one of the major arcana cards. And this card actually has a lady sitting on it almost like she's in meditation with like just divine light coming straight into her crown as if she is just being given all of the wisdom of the universe. And I think as we think about this with the podcast episode that we have done here around how we think about things, I think we can all try to embody the High Priestess and realize that we all have access to that divine wisdom that is true.
The
right?
True wisdom.
The true wisdom that is within all of us and provided to all of us from the universe. And we just need to learn how to tap into that and use that for our highest good.
And trust it.
And trust it. For 100% trust it.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, High Priestess.
Yep.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Guided by Third Wheel, the podcast. We would be honored if you would like, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, be well.